Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of Couch Sundays, your cozy corner of understanding and empathy on YouTube. Today, we're going to unravel the complex tapestry of trauma bonding, a psychological phenomenon that, while often misunderstood, can deeply affect relationships. We've all heard of bonds formed in love, but what happens when bonds are formed in trauma? It's a question that deserves our attention as it can significantly impact not just our relationships, but our mental health too. In this episode, we'll hear from those who've walked the path of trauma bonding, experts who shed light on its intricacies, and explore strategies for healing. We'll also delve into the warning signs so you can better recognize and address them. And importantly, we'll showcase the resources available for support, underlining that nobody has to navigate this journey alone. So buckle up as we dive into the world of trauma bonding. Trauma bonding, a term you might have come across, but what does it really mean? It's a phrase that sounds complex, but in essence, it's a survival strategy. It's a powerful emotional connection that forms between an individual and their abuser, often in situations of repeated cycles of abuse and reconciliation. Picture an emotional roller coaster where the highs are dizzying moments of love and affection, and the lows are steep descents into emotional or even physical abuse. The unpredictable nature of this cycle can create a powerful bond, much like the bond formed by shared positive experiences, but this one is rooted in fear and manipulation rather than love and respect. This bond often forms in relationships where there's a clear power imbalance. It could be a romantic relationship, a parent-child dynamic, or even in a workplace setting. The person on the receiving end of the abuse becomes emotionally dependent on their abuser, often mistaking the brief moments of kindness for genuine love and care. Psychologically speaking, trauma bonding is linked to our primal survival instincts. When we're in a threatening situation, our brains release chemicals that help us bond with those around us. It's a survival mechanism that can be traced back to our earliest human ancestors. But in an abusive relationship, this instinct can keep us tethered to a person who's causing us harm. The impact of trauma bonding on relationships can be devastating. It can lead to a cycle of abuse that's incredibly hard to break free from. It can distort our understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like and can make us feel trapped and helpless. But recognizing this pattern is the first step towards breaking the cycle. Understanding that the intense emotional connection you feel towards the abuser isn't a sign of love, but a symptom of trauma, can be a powerful realization. It's a tough journey, but with the right help and support, it's possible to break free from the chains of trauma bonding. Understanding trauma bonding is the first step to recognizing it in our lives. To bring this concept to life, we have some brave individuals who have shared their experiences with trauma bonding. Our first story comes from Jane. She unfolds a tale of a relationship that began during a vulnerable period in her life. She was going through a divorce, alone and emotionally raw. In the midst of this tumultuous time, she met someone who seemed to be in the same boat, recently broken up with his ex and equally hurting. Jane shares, "It felt like we were two broken pieces that fit together perfectly. We understood each other's pain, and I thought that made our bond stronger. Little did I know this was the start of a trauma bond." As Jane delved deeper into her relationship, she began to realize the unhealthy patterns that were forming. He was still hung up on his ex. He'd oscillate between extreme affection and cold indifference. I was always walking on eggshells, trying to keep him happy. It was emotionally exhausting, but I was so afraid of being alone again that I tolerated it. Jane's story is a classic example of trauma bonding, where the fear of abandonment and the intense emotional connection leads to a toxic cycle of mistreatment and forgiveness. She was stuck in a loop where the pain of leaving felt more daunting than the torment of staying. She further elaborates, "I kept justifying his behavior, telling myself that he was just hurt and needed time. But the more I justified, the more I lost myself in the relationship." Jane's narrative is one of countless stories of individuals ensnared in the web of trauma bonding. The intertwining of pain and love can create a bond that's tough to break, even when the relationship is clearly detrimental. The strength it takes to share such personal experiences is immense, and we appreciate our guests for their bravery. These stories are not just tales of pain and suffering, but also of resilience and the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome. To further understand trauma bonding, we have insights from psychologists and therapists who specialize in this field. Trauma bonding, as explained by experts, is a complex emotional attachment that develops between individuals, often in abusive or neglectful relationships. Imagine a bond created not out of love, respect, or mutual interest, but out of shared pain and suffering. It's a bond that's incredibly hard to break, precisely because it's built on the foundation of intense emotional experiences. Psychologists reveal that trauma bonding is often rooted in a cycle of abuse and kindness. The abuser may inflict psychological, emotional, or even physical harm only to show kindness afterward. This roller coaster of emotions creates a powerful bond as the victim clings to the moments of kindness, often overlooking the abuse. Now you may wonder how such a bond develops. The answer lies in our brain chemistry. When we experience stress or danger, our brains release chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals heighten our emotions, making us more susceptible to forming strong bonds. This is why, in the midst of trauma, we may form an intense attachment to those causing us harm. The impact of trauma bonding is profound. It can lead to a distorted sense of reality, where the victim may justify the abuser's actions or blame themselves. They may feel trapped, unable to leave the relationship due to the intense emotional attachment they've formed. This can result in long-lasting psychological damage, including symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. However, it's important to remember that trauma bonding is not a sign of weakness or lack of judgment. It's a survival mechanism, a way for our brains to cope with extreme emotional stress. By understanding trauma bonding, we can begin to break its hold and start the journey towards healing. In the words of renowned psychologist Dr. Patrick Carnes, trauma bonding is the glue that binds people who experience intimate partner violence together. It's a powerful, often misunderstood phenomenon that needs our attention and understanding. Experts provide us with the knowledge to recognize and understand trauma bonding. We return to our personal stories segment, where we hear more experiences about trauma bonding. As we delve deeper into the heart of this complex issue, we encounter the story of Jane. Jane was an effervescent spirit, full of life and dreams. She fell in love with a charismatic man who, unbeknownst to her, was entangled in his own emotional turmoil. As their relationship progressed, so did the intensity of their shared experiences. The moments of bliss were abundant, but so were the moments of pain. Jane found herself inexplicably drawn towards this man, even when his actions caused her distress. It wasn't the love she had envisioned, but it was a love she felt she couldn't live without. This was the beginning of a trauma bond that would consume her for years to come. Jane was caught in a whirlwind of intense emotions. She was constantly walking on eggshells, never knowing what might trigger an emotional outburst. These instances of volatility were interspersed with moments of intense affection, creating a cycle of pain and comfort that kept Jane tethered to this damaging relationship. But it wasn't all darkness and despair. There were moments of genuine connection and shared joy that made Jane believe that things could improve. She held on to these moments, using them as a lifeline during the stormier times. This is a common characteristic of trauma bonding, the intermittent reinforcement of love and affection that keeps the bond alive. As Jane navigated through the highs and lows of this emotional roller coaster, she started to lose sight of her own identity. She was so consumed by the relationship and its inherent chaos that she forgot what it felt like to be herself, to be free of this emotional turmoil. Jane's story is a stark reminder of the insidious nature of trauma bonding. It shows us how easy it is to get lost in the labyrinth of a loved one's emotional struggles and how challenging it can be to break free. Each story sheds light on the different faces of trauma bonding. Breaking free from trauma bonding is a journey, and here are some strategies that can help. Firstly, understanding is key. Knowing that your strong attachment, despite the pain it brings, is a result of trauma bonding is the first step to breaking free. Secondly, seeking professional help is vital. Psychologists and therapists are equipped with the knowledge and tools to guide you through this process. They can help you understand your emotions, patterns, and triggers, and work with you to develop new, healthier responses. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is one such tool. It helps individuals challenge their thought patterns, allowing them to change their behaviors and reactions over time. Thirdly, self-care is crucial. This is not just about bubble baths and good books, although those can indeed be part of it. Self-care is about taking care of your physical health, your emotional well-being, and your mental state. This could mean setting boundaries in relationships, prioritizing your needs, or even learning to say no when needed. Next, consider joining a support group. There's immense power in shared experiences. Support groups provide a safe space to share your feelings and experiences, learn from others who are going through similar situations, and gain encouragement and strength. In addition, mindfulness and meditation can be beneficial. These practices help you to stay present and avoid getting lost in past traumas or future anxieties. They can also help you develop a stronger sense of self, independent of your traumatic bonds. Lastly, patience with yourself is paramount. Healing from trauma bonding is not a linear process. There will be setbacks, but it's important to remember that these do not define your journey. Every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are resources available, professionals ready to help, and a community of people who understand what you're going through. Healing is possible, and these strategies are a step in that direction. Recognizing trauma bonding is crucial, and so is knowing where to find support. This is not just about understanding the concept or hearing people's experiences. It's about identifying the red flags, the subtle signals that indicate a trauma bond might be forming or already exists. Let's talk about some of these warning signs. They can be as subtle as feeling a constant need for approval from a specific person, or as glaring as enduring emotional or physical abuse, justifying it, and feeling unable to leave. You may find yourself stuck in a cycle of intense highs followed by crushing lows, all centered around one person. You might even start to believe that this volatile relationship is normal, or worse, that you deserve it. These red flags are not just markers on a map, they're alarms telling us something is not right. They're telling us it's time to seek help, to reach out, to break the cycle. And it's important to remember that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength, of the courage to heal and grow. So where can we find this support? Thankfully, there are many resources available. Mental health professionals such as therapists and counselors can provide guidance and therapeutic strategies. There are also numerous online communities, forums, and support groups where people share their experiences and offer each other understanding and encouragement. Books and informative materials on trauma bonding can also be valuable tools for understanding and healing. In addition to these, local and national hotlines can provide immediate assistance and direction to further resources. These avenues of support are not exclusive to one another, and combining them can often lead to the most comprehensive healing journey. Remember this, recognizing the signs of trauma bonding and seeking help is not an admission of defeat. It's a declaration of resilience, a first step on the path to recovery and healthier relationships. You are not alone, and there's help available. As we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly recap what we covered. We started off by defining trauma bonding, an intense emotional connection that develops from repeated cycles of abuse, where intermittent reinforcement of reward and punishment creates powerful emotional bonds resistant to change. We delved into how it can affect individuals in different relationships, creating a toxic cycle that can be challenging to break. We then heard personal stories from brave individuals who have experienced trauma bonding firsthand. Their stories gave us a deeper understanding of the complexities of trauma bonding, shedding light on the emotional turmoil and the courage it takes to break free. Next, we gained expert insights from psychologists, therapists, and researchers. They helped us understand the psychological aspects of trauma bonding, its impact on mental health, and the importance of seeking professional help. They provided us with a scientific perspective, reinforcing the fact that trauma bonding is a common yet often misunderstood psychological phenomenon. Following that, we discussed various healing strategies. We learned about the importance of setting boundaries, seeking therapy, practicing self-care, and building a support system. Breaking free from a trauma bond can be a long journey, but these strategies can help guide the way. We also highlighted the red flags associated with trauma bonding. Recognizing these warning signs is crucial in identifying and addressing the issue. Remember, it's not just physical abuse that signals a problem. Emotional and psychological abuse can be just as damaging. Lastly, we touched upon the importance of community and support resources. We emphasized that no one should navigate these complex relationships alone. There are numerous support groups, resources, and communities that offer help and understanding to individuals dealing with trauma bonding. Thank you for joining us on Couch Sundays. Remember, understanding is the first step towards healing. Until next time, take care.